Welcome back, everybody, to another week at the Marshmallow Man. Um, we're learning, we're getting this down. We should get really into a rhythm about the time we are no longer needing to wear these. If we, we will always have this equipment in play for certain kinds of science. I doubt if we'll actually be wearing it in the classroom. But back in some of the labs, it makes absolute sense. We've got, I think I counted 8 different kinds of compressed gas back there. And tanks and lines and pressurized systems go haywire. They had a, recently at a chicken planting, let's try that again, Carl. A chicken packing plant back on the East Coast, I think it was Georgia. They lost, I think, like 11 people due to a leak in liquid nitrogen and compressed refrigeration lines. And again, it just reinforces the idea that if you've got that extra margin of safety, use it. If we're back there and we're pouring a tank of liquid nitrogen into the scanning electron microscope, things go sideways and that tank falls over. If we're all wearing these, there's absolutely no risk. And both from the standpoint of burns and from the standpoint of suffocation. We exit the laboratory and air it out, and we're good in an hour or so. So makes good sense.
They need to have this in the chicken packing plant.
Yeah.
If you ever see the videos of them doing that, they're elbow to elbow, sharp knives flying, and people getting cut constantly.
I understand. The problem is that chickens don't like to wear these.
Yeah.
Just thought I'd tell you. Okay.
Probably.
Anyway, moving right along, we had some neat ground that we made this last couple of weeks. You can't see them, but we've got new rocket chairs over there. Boy, I'll tell you what, those are really nice. Go ahead and spin that one around so everyone can see it. Yeah. It is. We got C25 MIG welding online this last week. So this is a combination of 75% argon, 25% CO2, and it is one of the better and easier ways to do MIG welding. So big plus there. One of the things that we're looking forward to is that when I'm walking around up here talking, you'll notice that hopefully through the rest of the night that there's no dropouts. And that is the point where you can no longer hear me. The reason for that is we've got twin radio receivers now. We've got a new set of receivers back there. We've got a new set of receivers in the other part of the building, and we're actually muxing those signals together such that if one drops out, the other one's got it. So there's very few times you'll ever be in a place where both signals will drop out simultaneously. So this will add significant consistency to our audio. Have some other neat toys, but I'm going to save those for the end of the show. We're going to be talking about telescopes tonight. But we'll first off, we've got a little bit of PowerPoint to finish up, some presentations. So I'm going to turn it over to Dave at this point and let him introduce you to Jane Goodall.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Unfortunately, he did put his name on there, and now I can't remember whose presentation am I doing.
Jane Goodall.
Yeah, but which student put this together. He couldn't be here, so I told him that I'd go ahead and present it for him.
Was that Rishi?
No.
Okay.
No. It's the one that I told you. He said it's going to be rare that he can make it on Friday nights.
Oh, Alex.
Alex, yes.
Okay.
So, Jane Goodall. Now, you've probably heard of her. She's very, very famous. And teachers in biology love to talk about her. However, she's also highly controversial. And we're going to see why. She was born in 1934, April 3rd. She was married twice. First time, Derek Bryson, from 75 to 80, and then Hugo Van Eywick from 64 to 74. And I guess those actually reversed chronologically. She's only had one child, and then that child gave her 2 grandchildren. She's a primatologist. Those are people who study primates. Primates being apes, monkeys. But her emphasis was on the apes, in particular chimpanzees, as we'll see. She also was an anthropologist. Anthropologists study human societies, the cultures and such. And so she related what she found with primates to what humans do. Similarities and differences. Oops. She was in England. She left England and went to Tanzania in order to study chimpanzees. And very little was known about chimpanzees at the time. As a matter of fact, they had only in more recent times been discovered. But she spent 60 years of her life studying the chimps. And she showed the whole world how the chimps behaved, lots of information about them, and worked at protecting them from becoming extinct because they were on the list. And she was one of the earliest people to get into species conservation, making sure that we don't lose some species, or trying to. 60 years she studied chimps. She's still around, and she now spends most of her time speaking about the chimps and trying to get people and support, financial support, for endangered animals. And there she is with one of the chimps. She had a revolutionary approach to studying chimps. She lived next door to them. They were her neighbors. And she would directly interact with them. All the studies that were done before that were done as observers, never interacting with the chimps, back hidden where they could see what the chimps were doing. And that's why, one of the reasons she became controversial, because when an investigator gets involved with what they're investigating, they change it. That is just one of the rules of research that people have to be careful about. And so there are a number of people who believe that a lot of her conclusions are wrong, that it was happening because she was joining with the chimps. Some quotes that she has said: the greatest danger to our future is apathy, not caring. The least I can do is speak out for those who cannot speak for themselves. Only if we understand will we care. Only if we care will we help. And only if we help shall all be saved. She also said lasting change is a series of compromises. And compromise is all right as long as your values don't change. It's one of the reasons I never became a politician, because I was never willing to compromise. Because I've got values. She also said, only if we oh, that's repeated. Let's get that. Awards. She has been recognized by a lot of different organizations for what she has done. And she was named Dame Commander of the Order of the British Empire. Also, she was named the United Nations Messenger of Peace. She received the Tyler Prize for Environmental Achievement. She's received the French Legion of Honor. She received the Medal of Tanzania, and a whole lot more. She's got many, many awards. The work that she has done has opened society's eyes to what chimpanzees are and how to protect them, and all other animals that are endangered or are close to that classification, and to make sure that they don't become extinct. Thank you.
Okay.
I see Paul's there, and he's said he could present tonight.
Yeah, I could present today.
Okay.
We
Paul, do you want to do that from your machine?
Yeah.
we have
Okay.
10 more students who need to do presentations still.
Okay, hang on. We're making progress.
Little by little, bit by bit.
Okay. Hang on here while I get you vectored into the system.
Mhm.
That's going to be on. Okay, Paul, you're up.
So my presentation was on Mary Anning. So who was Mary Anning? Mary Anning was an English paleontologist who would collect fossils and also a dealer, and was known as the greatest fossilist the world ever knew. So throughout her early life, Mary was born in the southern shores of Great Britain in 1799. Mary Anning was born with many, many siblings, although sadly, in 1810, her father Richard passed, leaving behind a whole lot of debt for the family. However, thankfully, he passed on these skills of fossil hunting over to his children and wife. At the cliffs of Lyme Regis, where she was born, were full of amazing fossils that were from the Jurassic time period. As Mary and her family struggled in poverty, but they were granted an opportunity, thankfully, by Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Birch, and he would help them hold an auction for the family to sell their amazing fossils that they found with the hunting skills that they learned from their father. Soon, Mary Anning would take over the family business. Mary Anning was also known and credited to be the first discoverer of the fossil of the ichthyosaur. She was a large factor towards discovering the first specimen known to London's scientific community between 1809 and 1811. Due to Mary Anning's dedication and skill, she has been a large contributor to the scientific community overall. Many scientists and museums would go seek Mary and her family out for their fossils. Mary Anning's accomplishments. In Mary Anning's lifetime, she had made amazing discoveries, with one of the most important being the discovery of the first plesiosaurus. However, the validity of the specimen was questioned at first by the autonomous George Cuvier when he analyzed the drawing. This discovery she made was soon realized genuine, leading to Mary Anning being respected across all paleontologists in the scientific community. Many of Mary's discoveries have ended up with her either being in her personal collection or a lot being donated to museums. Despite her amazing accomplishments, her and her family have soon have been forgotten as time went on in the scientific community because of the lack of documentation of her talents. Throughout Mary Anning's life, there was a lot of hardships. Back then, the idea of a woman and her social status was unable to do so many. The idea of her being able to do so many things, they didn't really truly recognize her for her skills and did not want to really believe that she could hold so much talent and knowledge. Due to her gender, she was often discredited and not respected. Overall, she would risk her life every day and have to work even harder to show her success in the scientific community. She is known as a pioneer to the fossil hunting community. Thank you.
Super.
She is an excellent example of a woman who made great, great accomplishments, and yet people at the time wouldn't accept her because she was a woman. And women aren't supposed to do things like that. But the plesiosaur she found and the ichthyosaurus, both marine animals, aquatic, great discoveries, and many more.
Okay, who's up next?
I don't think any of those people.
So we've got, let's see, Ada. Let me check. Oh, no, Marielle is not here. So she's not going to be able to present. Okay. Rosalind Franklin. Do you know who was going to cover her?
Let me get out my list. Oh, that was Rishi.
Okay.
Yeah, we still need Tiffany, Trevor, Rishi, Sahithi, Gunnar, Muriel,
Okay.
Ksenia, Lutman, and Emily. All those people still need to present. Hopefully we can get them all in next Friday, because I'd like to move on to other topics.
Okay. Did you leave the presenter up there?
Yes. It's
Okay.
on the stool.
Cool. Okay. I'm going to switch it up on you. We've been talking about very famous women scientists, which I have a lot of women scientists at Microsoft and women engineers at Microsoft. Not as many as we would like, and we're doing everything we can to find that talent and bring it in. Microsoft gets it. We'll be talking about that in depth here in the next few minutes. The subject I'm going to hit is really close to home for all of you who want to stay warm, fed, and dry. Anyone here want to stay warm, fed, and dry? Oh, we got one, three, four. Yeah, yep, everybody. Oh, hey. Imagine that. Nobody wants to sleep in the gutter. Well, I suppose you all felt, and rightfully so, that there isn't much danger that you're not going to be able to make it in this world. What if all that got changed up suddenly? What if it all changed almost overnight? And what if it was, while it was changing, you didn't even know what was going on? What if the game changed completely? It did. What you're about to see will definitely pop your eyeballs. And I mean that. Please take it seriously. If you don't wake up and see the train coming, you'll get out of the value of your life about half of what it's worth. This is not a joke. I am not overplaying this. I couldn't be more serious. And I want to share something from somebody who works at Microsoft who feels the same way.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Brad Smith, Microsoft's president, and today is an important day for all of us who work at Microsoft. Today, we're launching a global initiative to bring digital skills to 25 million people around the world by the end of this year. This work has been months in the making, but with COVID-19, a huge economic recession, we think that this kind of work is needed now more than ever. Now, typically we would have a live event. We'd have people in the audience to launch this type of thing. But of course, we're living in a different time. So come on in and I'll show you how we're going to do this. Today, we're at Microsoft Studios. It's a building on our Redmond campus that has sound stages, broadcast facilities, control rooms. This is where we do a lot of work as a company for live and recorded events. Today, there's not as many people here as there might be on most days. We're working with a skeleton crew. Everybody's socially distanced, except for me. Everybody's wearing a mask because I'm on camera. But the main thing is what we want to share. We think that the world needs new steps to help people get back to work, to find new jobs and do it all safely. So let's get started. Come on in and join me in the control room as we get this kicked off. This is where our team is producing the event, including Rick and John, who you see here. And what better way to kick all of this off than to turn to Microsoft CEO, Satya Nadella. Satya?
Thanks, Brad, and welcome. Before we start, I want to address a topic that is front and center for us as a society: racial injustice and inequity. There's absolutely no place for hate, bias, or racism in our world. The cracks of injustice and inequity in our society hinder progress for everyone and call on us to act. Last week, we announced a multi-year sustained approach to address racial injustice focused on our culture at Microsoft, our ecosystem, and our communities. Change begins by looking inward. It's what our employees, customers, and partners expect from us and what the world demands. We are committed to doing our part and acting with intention. Today, I want to focus on another source of inequity and what we are doing about it. COVID-19 has created both a public health as well as an economic crisis. As we move from the initial emergency response phase to the recovery phase to the reimagine phase, determining what should be rebuilt, what should be redefined, we need to ensure that no one is left behind and address the needs of those most impacted by this crisis. For us, this starts with reflecting on the role of a corporation to create profitable solutions to the problems of people and planet. At Microsoft, we're focused on empowering every person, including the more than 1 billion people with disabilities, every worker, knowledge workers, first-line workers, every business, small or large, every industry from agriculture to retail, every community, rural or urban, every country, developed or developing. Everywhere we look, we see relentless ingenuity and drive. People are contributing in new ways, in essential roles, which have been overlooked and undervalued to keep our society and economy functioning amidst this pandemic. And during this time of change, people are hungry to learn, gain new skills, and grow their economic opportunity. It's been forecast that 800 million people need to learn new skills for their jobs by 2030. COVID-19 has made the skills gap even more acute. It's exacerbating economic inequity People of color, people with disabilities, women, early in career workers, and those who have less formal education are bearing the brunt of this unemployment crisis. For those who still have jobs, it's changing not only how they work, but what they work on. Every job will increasingly require digital skills. In the next 5 years, nearly 149 million new tech jobs will be created in fields like software development, cybersecurity, and machine learning. Talent is everywhere, but the opportunity is not. Over and over again, we see that when people have access to education and skilling, they create new economic opportunity for themselves as well as their communities. Take Tiara Phillips, a phone support worker in Chicago. After being laid off, her first concern was providing for her 2 children. She trained as a cloud support specialist, knowledgeable in Microsoft SQL, and is now employed full-time.
Having those tech skills, I am better prepared to go into any field or any job that I decide to.
Take Diana Cohn, a visual artist and a mother in Pasadena, California. After hearing loss, she needed an accessible tool to learn new skills. With LinkedIn Learning courses, she was able to start and grow her own design business.
I never thought a busy mom like me could switch careers so quickly, but I did.
And Yassine Souki in Paris, France, who after the death of his father had to provide for his family. After enrolling in our AI school, he found a new career as a data scientist.
To me, it's exciting to learn every day new things, new technologies, and I'm like a newborn.
As a platform and tools company, our identity is rooted in empowering people like Tiara, Diana, and Yassine. And over the last few months in particular, we have seen people around the world turn to our platforms to learn new skills. We create technology so that others can create more technology. And our partner ecosystem employs more than 17 million people doing just that. Microsoft Learn helps anyone obtain certifications in our technology, and the usage was up 475% in the month of May compared to a year ago. LinkedIn is the world's largest professional network. With LinkedIn Learning, anyone can access more than 16,000 online courses, from how to manage compassionately to basic Python. In May alone, people watched 382% more hours of content than they did a year ago. And GitHub is the home to more than 50 million developers. GitHub's Learning Lab provides hands-on tutorials for both aspiring as well as experienced developers. In May, usage was up 900% year over year. But we know we can and must do more. That's why we are bringing together these assets to reimagine how people learn and apply new skills to help 25 million people who have lost their jobs due to COVID-19 acquire digital skills for jobs of the future. There are 3 pillars to our approach. First, we've used data from the LinkedIn Economic Graph, which is a digital representation of the global economy, to identify the 10 most in-demand jobs like IT technician, data analyst, and customer service specialist. And we're launching free learning content from across Microsoft, inclusive of LinkedIn and GitHub, for these roles, which anyone can access in multiple languages. Second, we will match people's skills to the right jobs. We're providing access to low-cost certification and free job-seeking tools. And we're partnering with nonprofits to provide additional support for those who need it most, including people with lower income and people of color. And third, acquiring new skills doesn't stop when someone gets a job. Just like every company today has a system of engagement with CRM or a system of record with ERP, they'll require a system of learning, creating a continuous feedback loop between the work, skills, and learning required to succeed at the task at hand and the credentials to accelerate career advancement. A new Microsoft Teams app will help organizations skill and upskill employees surfacing learning content in the context of their day-to-day work. By applying our technologies and partnering across the private and public sectors, we believe we can make progress in closing the skills gap. The novelist Doris Lessing once defined learning as being able to understand something you've understood all your life, but in a new way. It's this inherent capability within all of us that we want to unleash so collectively we can build a better future for everyone. And with that, I'll hand it over to Brad. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Satya. Anytime we launch an initiative like this, we always ask ourselves a critical question. What's the problem we're trying to solve? Well, in some cases, it's obvious. Look around the world today, and what we see is more people out of work since any time in the Great Depression in the 1930s. In fact, we estimate that in 2020, before this year comes to an end, we'll see almost 250 million people lose their job. It's a staggering number. In part, it's the obvious reaction to this pandemic, a pandemic that is unique in our lifetime. But it's about more than that as well. It's also the result of long-term trends in our economy, trends that have been unleashing more automation that has been eliminating jobs that often involve more manual work and replacing them with jobs that are more digitally focused. Think about all of the jobs around us. Everywhere you look, you see that jobs are becoming more digital. Think about the work of a graphic designer. What used to happen on a piece of paper now is displayed on a computer screen. Think about people in the healthcare area. Think about the explosion in telehealth just over the last few months. That, we think, is never going to go back to the way it was before. Think about what it takes to work on a manufacturing floor in the world today. Manufacturers are digital workers. And think about the life of a teacher. Think about how dependent teachers have become on digital skills and digital tools. Even when kids are back in the classroom, we can expect more reliance on digital technology to continue. That's why we estimate as a company that by the middle of this decade, in the year 2025, we'll see the creation of 149 million new technology jobs. In many ways, these will be jobs that involve the creation of software, but they involve a whole lot more than that. It includes people who will be working with data, people who will be protecting cybersecurity, people who will be protecting privacy as well. Everywhere, in every company, on every continent, even in government itself, we'll see the need for people with new skills. But there's another problem that we have to help solve. If you look back over the last 20 years, employer investments in employee training have been declining. They first fell from the late 1990s to the year 2010, and then in the decade that we just finished, we really experienced a decade of stagnation, stagnating employer investments in employee training. So fundamentally, this asks us to ask ourselves, how do we turn this around? How do we help people develop the skills they'll need to succeed in the years ahead? It calls on a principled approach. And that's what we've been doing as a company. We've grounded our work, not just this initiative that we're launching today, but beyond, in 6 principles. It really starts by putting data and digital technology to work to help people develop new skills. The data can help us learn what skills people need, and the technology can help people acquire them. But it takes more than that. We're focused on a broad set of skills, not just digital skills alone. In part, we need to help people develop the skills to ensure that technology is used responsibly, that it's applied ethically, that it's deployed in a manner that protects people's privacy. And we need to help people develop the soft or so-called success skills that are essential for a world where people need to work with each other, and it's all about the success of a team. We need to couple that by asking employers to do more. Employers around the world will need to invest more in the training of their people. As an employer, that starts with Microsoft itself, and you'll see us take new steps in the months ahead. But more than that, we think our biggest contribution is in creating tools and technology that can help employers do more for their employees and do it more seamlessly, more effectively, more efficiently than they can today. All of this requires partnership. And so as part of this initiative, we're leaning on partners in a big way. A huge aspect of this is stronger partnerships with nonprofits in the United States and around the world. and a spirit of partnership to work with and support governments as well. Finally, this is an initiative that is pulling together every part of our company. It starts with LinkedIn, which is really the heart and soul of this work, but it combines LinkedIn's efforts with Microsoft Learn and with GitHub and the GitHub Learning Lab, and ultimately, it's about all of us working together in a new and important way. That's why what you'll see here today is a multifaceted approach to this initiative. It's an initiative that starts with data to identify the jobs that are in demand and the skills that are needed for them. It builds on that by providing people with access to learning content free of charge. And then it builds on that second piece with this third, access to low-cost, subsidized tests and certifications and free job-seeking tools so people can close the loop and find the job that they'll need for a more successful future. To walk us through all of these pieces, I'm delighted to turn this over to Ryan Roslansky, the new CEO at LinkedIn. Ryan?
Thanks, Brad. Hi, I'm Ryan Roslansky, and I'm the CEO of LinkedIn. I couldn't be more honored to be here today to talk about our goal to bring digital skills to 25 million people. We're committed to helping those who have lost their job due to the COVID-19 pandemic get the new skills they need to land their next job. And the Microsoft ecosystem is uniquely positioned to help people connect opportunity. But finding opportunity isn't just about searching for a job. As Brad mentioned, job seekers and the government agencies who support them need the access to the data to help identify where employment opportunities exist, the accessible tools to effectively develop relevant skills, and the ability to demonstrate those skills to organizations who are hiring. In order to achieve our ambitious goal, we've created one place for people to go to, opportunity.linkedin.com. We've built this site by tapping into resources across the Microsoft ecosystem, from LinkedIn and LinkedIn Learning to Microsoft Learn to GitHub Labs. And we start this process by navigating the uncertainty as objectively as possible with insight into real-time skilling trends. And for that, we turn to LinkedIn. You may know LinkedIn is that app on your phone with your professional identity and community. But behind those profiles, companies, and connections is a real-time digital representation of the professional world, giving us insight into workforce trends and skills demand. By digitally mapping over 690 million professionals, 50 million companies, 11 million job listings, 36,000 skills, and 90,000 schools on LinkedIn, we're able to spot trends like in-demand skills, emerging jobs, and global hiring patterns. We call this the economic graph. These insights help us connect LinkedIn members to open opportunities. And we're excited to begin offering some of our labor market insights to policymakers and the public to help understand what jobs and skills are in demand per region. This labor market insights tool includes data on what companies are hiring, the top jobs companies are hiring for, and the skills needed for those jobs. The data is available and downloadable from more than 180 countries and regions, and you can access this tool at opportunity.linkedin.com. For example, the data shows us that a remote everything world has shined a light on the importance of both digital skills and soft skills. We've seen an increase in the need for digital skills, and it's being accelerated by the pandemic. Since March, web and video conferencing skills are up 525%, and Microsoft Teams as a skill is up 500%. Professionals are hungry to learn the latest ways to stay in touch with their colleagues, even while physically apart. On the soft skills front, we've seen the skills of collaboration and people management accelerate. Given the complex and challenging work situations that many of us are facing, it's no surprise that employers are looking for professionals to help them lead through change by sharpening critical soft skills. And also, as we work towards a more equitable future, professionals are more than ever investing in their own learning to understand and confront bias, communicate about topics of difference, and show up as allies to build a more inclusive workplace and society. Based on this data and these trends, we're making 4 learning paths from LinkedIn Learning available for free. LinkedIn Learning is our broad-based skilling platform with more than 16,000 video-based courses across business, technology, and creative topics, all taught by industry-leading experts. First, we have the Digital Fluency Learning Path. We are making it easy to learn video conferencing in Microsoft Teams, among other skills. Then we have the Critical Soft Skills Learning Path with content that helps improve communication and collaboration among teams. Next, we have a Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging path that also touches on some of those critical skills of communicating and understanding bias that help create inclusive work environments. And finally, we have a Job-Seeking Best Practices path to help job seekers prepare for roles in the digital economy and manage their job-seeking process more effectively. These learning paths are now available for free. The economic graph also gives us visibility into jobs that are most in demand globally. By looking at jobs that have the greatest number of openings, have had steady growth over the past 4 years, pay a livable wage, and require skills that can be learned online, we've identified 10 jobs that are accessible to those seeking employment, giving individuals and governments a compass for where to begin. Today, we're also making 10 LinkedIn learning paths aligned with these roles available for free. For example, check out the graphic designer path. Each learning path includes a sequence of video content aimed at helping individuals broadly develop the core skills needed for any given role. These learning paths are available in English, French, Spanish, and German. Given the rise in demand for skills, for digital skills especially, and for roles that are more technical in nature, we have Microsoft Learn that combines short step-by-step training with interactive coding and scripting to help learners go deep on Microsoft technologies. Microsoft Learn content also helps learners prepare for Microsoft certifications so they can gain industry recognition for their skills. Through the end of the year, we're significantly discounting the exams for these certifications for those impacted by COVID-19. And will also enable job seekers pursuing developer roles to access the GitHub Learning Lab to practice their skills. GitHub Learning Lab is a bot-based learning tool that uses repositories to teach technology, coding, Git, and GitHub via real-life demo-based modules. This means that as job seekers engage in learning paths, they'll have the opportunity to practice newly acquired skills by completing realistic projects in a personalized GitHub repository. And using our free tools to learn is the most important part, but once you've learned those skills, we've made it simple for you to add them to your LinkedIn profile. This will help you be found by the millions of recruiters and hiring managers who are searching for talent on LinkedIn. And speaking of being found, I'm very excited we've launched our new feature called Open to Work. It harnesses the power of the LinkedIn community to help the large unemployed population that Brad talked about be found for work. Take Daisy, who's a LinkedIn member. She was just laid off her job as a customer success manager. She's discovered a way on LinkedIn to indicate to the community that she's looking for work. And once Daisy has this on her profile, a green circle appears to let her network know how to help her. Daisy can also proactively share with her network, and people can click to see what she's looking for and message her to offer support. And when job seekers get to that critical interview phase, we want to help them demonstrate their skills through effective interviewing. So we're offering free interview prep tools, including a newly launched feature leveraging Microsoft AI for real-time feedback on your answers. Take Michael, a job seeker who can now record a video of himself practicing an interview. Then in real time, he can get feedback on things like his speech patterns, the filler words he uses, and some tips to improve his answers. I am honored and excited to be part of this initiative and will continue to focus our team on those we can help. By working together and helping those whose jobs have been impacted by the COVID-19 economic crisis, we can make a difference right now in the workforce, in the economy, and in our everyday lives. There's perhaps no better way to bring to life the power reskilling can have on the world than with this video from one of our learners.
I have always been a visual artist. I was thinking of pivoting my career as the world around me became more digital. I wanted a way to learn that was accessible since I have hearing loss. That's when a friend recommended LinkedIn Learning. I immediately started taking courses, and with these skills, I was able to start a business venture that I'm really passionate about. I never thought a busy mom like me could switch careers so quickly, but I did, thanks to LinkedIn Learning.
To learn more about any of these features we just talked about, visit opportunity.linkedin.com. And now, Brad, back over to you.
Thanks, Ryan. As important as each of those pieces is, one of the things we recognize is that reaching 25 million people is not something that any company can do by itself. That's why we're also including another big piece of today's initiative. It involves expanded partnerships with nonprofits around the world. Nonprofits that will do critical work to work personally with individuals, oftentimes individuals that may need the help the most. They'll provide mentoring and counseling and other teaching and assistance. We're putting $20 million of cash grants to reach nonprofits in countries all around the world. Our work with nonprofits isn't just about numbers and countries. Fundamentally, it's about people. And I think the best way to understand this is to join the conversation we're having with two people. First, I want to invite Trevor Noah to join the conversation. Trevor, we've been so fortunate to work with you these past couple of years on a lot of nonprofit work. And one of the great things has been your own nonprofit, the Trevor Noah Foundation. I was with you 2 years ago in Johannesburg when you launched that at the New Nation School. Share just for a moment some of the work that you're doing to provide skills to the next generation of people.
Well, I will say, Brad, it's been an amazing journey for me because, we met organically in a conversation around technology and what it meant in my life. We met talking about my life, my book, and Microsoft in the journey that I had lived on the campus with you. And a few years later, we were in South Africa, not just giving kids the tools that they need physically to connect to a digital world, but we also gave them the tools that they need to actually understand the digital world. And I think that's always been my biggest passion, is connecting people with the information that they need and the skills that they need to actually use the tools that then keep them in the jobs that they then acquire. And I think that's oftentimes been the issue. I've always been a fan of metaphors and analogies, as you know, and I always say to people, people be like, teach a man to fish. And I go, yes, but you've also got to give him the fishing rod. And so I think combining those two elements together has really been important to me. And that's where I've loved the journey with Microsoft is, you guys helped us bring the fishing rods, and then you taught the people how to fish. And we've been able to use that to make fishers of men every single day. And that's been beautiful to see in kids in South Africa, seeing young children start off their life with all the tools that they need to have the best opportunity to succeed.
Well, what a great segue to the next person I want to introduce you to, Linda Edelman. Meet Linda. She's the CEO of Trust for the Americas. We've been working with her group for years across Latin America, across the Caribbean. Wanted to give the two of you an opportunity to talk a little bit about how the nonprofits are going to play such an essential role in all of this.
Well, thank you so much, Brad, and thanks for the opportunity to participate in this filming today. And thanks to Microsoft. We're celebrating our 15-year anniversary of working together with you to impact people in the hemisphere.
Wow, that's really amazing. Linda, I've had the opportunity, just in knowing Brad, to learn a little bit about your organization, but I'm always fascinated to understand the whys and the hows that bring people together. And I wanted to know from your perspective, why do you think it's so important for people to have the digital skills in this world today? I mean, it seems like an easy answer, but some would say, why? Why do you think this is one of the most important causes out there?
I think it's because jobs are changing and the jobs are consolidating and jobs are disappearing because of technological innovation. And we've seen with coronavirus and the economic crisis that has ensued that the trend is only accelerating. And many of the jobs that have disappeared, at least in my country, in the United States, they've disappeared and many of them may not come back. But I do think that there's a silver lining in this situation for the worker, which is that there are lots of jobs go unfilled in the hemisphere, which is the part of the world that I have experienced working in. And there is a mismatch between jobs that are available, these jobs that are going unfilled, and the skills that workers have. And what we found at the Trust for the Americas, if you can work with people and give them the skills they need for the jobs that exist, we get to a very happy place where people, where jobs are filled and people are working and generating income for themselves and their families.
You've worked with Microsoft now for, I think, 15 years.
Yes.
which is a really long relationship, more than most people's relationships, really. The question is, why do you think that relationship has lasted so long? What do you think it is about the trust and about Microsoft that has put the two together, that has just turned into a perfect synergy? What is it about that combination that works so well?
I think that Microsoft is willing to take a chance on us. In 2004, the trust was still sort of in startup mode, and our big project that was given to us by the Department of Labor was coming to an end. It was a program to use hardware and software to provide skills to people who had been disabled in the war in El Salvador. And when that project ended, we wanted to take this expertise and grow it and make it available to people throughout the hemisphere. And Microsoft took a chance on us and gave us funding to start 2 information and technology centers in Guatemala. And that program has now just expanded more than we could have ever hoped. We now have 225 labs and centers across the hemisphere. I think we're in 14 countries, and we've impacted lots and lots of people together. I think close to 2 million people with our Microsoft support. But if I had to say the most important thing about our relationship with Microsoft, beyond the financial support, which of course we need to do our work, really is the capacity building they've given us. We've grown up together with Microsoft. They've given us skills to learn how to be a business, and we've been able to pass along those skills to the local partners with which we work, and I think we all do a better job because of that training.
It's a relationship that you always have to work on. It's a relationship that you always renew. It's clear why you work together, and it's easy to see why Microsoft is in for this journey. What I'd love to know is what the future holds, because you've just reaffirmed your commitment. Both Microsoft and the trust have said, hey, we're working together and we want to do more in the future. The question is, what do you hope the future holds? What are you now trying to do beyond those 2 million that you've impacted, or what are you trying to improve?
Well, what we're trying to do together really is to focus, at least at the trust, all of our efforts in promoting the future of work and innovation. Because what we see in the hemisphere is that there are very high unemployment rates. The situation is getting worse with coronavirus. And unless people are prepared for the jobs of the future and have the skills to start small businesses, then the vulnerable populations, which is the group of people with which we work, are going to be left out of the equation. We see in my country here the social unrest, the results from a crisis of equity. People really need to be included, and that's our mission, social and economic inclusion for the vulnerable. And if I could just add, we've found that technology has really been a great equalizer. It levels the playing field, and people are able to get jobs and to improve their lives and start small businesses. And that really has a profound impact. We found at the Trust that the most important way that we could help promote social and economic inclusion was to give people the skills so they could generate income. And by generating income, they could help themselves, help their families, and that brings about profound change.
It definitely has. And, I look to organizations like yours. Brad has been kind enough to point me in that direction to places and spaces where I've met some of the most amazing people doing fantastic things. And once again, Brad has knocked out the park by introducing you to me. So thank you very much for that. I'm honestly honored to meet you, Linda, and I can't wait to see what additional work the organization is going to be doing.
Well, I hope that you can come and visit one of our centers.
Definitely.
We'd love to show you around, and I'd love to. I have lots of stories that I could tell you about the people who I've met and some of the lives we've impacted. Really, we talk about statistics, and statistics are important because it gives you a context for the impact, but really it's all about the impact you can have on one person and how that person will go on to impact others. And that's what it's all about.
Definitely. Hopefully the airports will be open. If not, Brad will loan me his HoloLens, and then I'll use that to virtually come visit you.
That would be terrific. We'd love to see you.
And I'll look forward to visiting as well. So thank you. Thanks to both of you. Thanks for your time today, Linda. Thanks as always, Trevor.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. As you can see, the work we're doing with nonprofits is really global in scope. But in addition to that global work, we recognize that we have a heightened responsibility to work with nonprofits here in the United States. to provide help and financial support to nonprofits that are led by people of color and serve communities of color. That's what we're doing. We're dedicating $5 million of our $20 million total of cash grants to provide assistance to these groups. We base this in part on not just what we're all thinking about and reading about and seeing in the news, but by what data is telling us as well. What we've seen this year is that job losses in the United States have been hitting the hardest, in so many ways, the people who can bear it the least. We're seeing higher job losses for people with lower income. We're seeing higher unemployment rates for people of color. And we're seeing the same phenomenon with respect to women, as more women have been losing their jobs than men. So we feel we have a special responsibility to serve women of color, to serve people of color. We'll couple that work with nonprofits with current and future committed long-term efforts to use our voice as a company on public policy issues. And we're prioritizing 3 issues in particular. This has to start, we think, with new government support and more governmental innovation to invest in individuals, to create more skilling opportunities for individuals. It then should be coupled, in our view, with new government incentives for employers, especially as governments consider stimulus packages. This is the time when governments can change that trajectory that we've been living with for 20 years by providing employers with tax credits and other financial incentives to enable employers, perhaps most especially small employers, small businesses, so they too can invest in the training and new opportunities for their people. And finally, there is an opportunity for governments to put data and innovation to work by opening up public data sets and to innovate in government workforce training and the like. In all of these ways, governments have such an important role to play in building a better future. And that brings us back to what we'll do as well. We see ongoing technology innovation as playing a fundamental role, not just this year, but every year in the decade ahead, to support every part of what nonprofits, governments, employers, and individuals all need to do. That's why we're taking a page out of what has worked well for us in the sustainability space. We're focused in 2020 on 3 skilling sprints. The first of these is what we're launching today. It will be followed by a second that will launch this fall, a sprint that is focused on providing new technology and tools to employers. And that, in turn, will be followed by a third sprint that will focus on what we're doing for students. But let me give you a bit of a sneak preview of what you'll see more this fall. The new technology and teams that we're going to make available to employers around the world. Let me invite Charlotte Yarkoni from Microsoft, the corporate vice president, who's leading this work. Charlotte?
Thanks, Brad. As people have shifted to remote work, customers increasingly have turned to collaboration and learning tools. Usage of Microsoft and LinkedIn products has increased significantly in the last few months, and companies need to ensure their workforces remain productive, agile, and competitive in a challenging global economy. While customers have told us they value skilling, they've also shared how challenging it can be to create successful corporate learning environments. There are a couple of themes we often hear. First, employers know they need to train and retrain employees to do current and new jobs well. But many companies struggle to connect learning to business impact, making it hard to justify continued investments in learning. Engagement is also a big challenge. Proactive engagement and learning at work tends to be low, and many employees don't have enough time or incentive to learn at work. There's also low cultural emphasis placed on learning, with research showing that only 1/3 of employees have leadership teams encouraging them to learn. At Microsoft, our goal is to empower employees to grow in their roles and their careers, which helps businesses thrive. We'll accomplish this by bringing learning into the natural flow of work for employees, instead of a separate task in their busy day. This means making it easier for employees, managers, and teams to collaborate, discover, and track their learning with the tools they already use. All levels of employees are already using Microsoft Teams for chatting, meeting, collaborating, and streamlining business processes. Now we're adding learning. Later this year, we will preview a new learning app in Microsoft Teams that integrates world-class content from LinkedIn Learning, Microsoft Learn, a customer's own content, and other content providers, all in one place. The content will range from formalized instructor-led trainings to microlearning, which allows you to gain skills by role or technology in bite-sized and interactive ways. The app will make it easier for employees to find and access relevant training content wherever they are, allowing them to have conversations around that content and earn certifications and recognition for their skills. It will also empower managers to assign and track learning progress, all while using Teams, a familiar tool they use every day. From new employees to managers to first-line workers, the Learning app in Teams will make it easier for employees to learn while they work. We're working hard to create this experience, and I'm excited to share an early preview of how this will come to life. Let's take a look.
Around the world, employees use Microsoft Teams as their hub for teamwork. Now we're extending Teams to include learning, enabling employees to learn within the flow of their work. Let's see how learning comes to life in Teams. The Learning app in Teams makes it easy to discover and share trainings and courses. Raj just joined the team. As he gets started, he opens Teams and sees a welcome message from his manager, Julia, along with a reply from a team member suggesting he check out the Our Trainings tab. In Our Trainings, the team has curated all of the trainings helpful to a new team member, including technical trainings from Microsoft Learn, courses from LinkedIn Learning, and company-owned learning content, all available in one easy-to-access place. Raj needs to decide which training to take first. He's able to see how many people at the company have viewed and liked each course. He selects a training and opens it in Teams where he can start the training, catch up on the latest conversation, and join the discussion. When Raj completes the training, he moves right back into the flow of his work in Teams. Managers facilitate the discovery of learning resources and foster discussion so that peer learning can flourish. To enable that, managers need tools to assign and track trainings. In her activity feed, Julia sees a LinkedIn Learning video posted by MJ, a fellow team leader. She clicks on the training and sees more details, along with like and assign options. She thinks the training will be beneficial and decides to ask two of her teams to take it. Without leaving Teams, she can easily assign the course to individuals or groups. Back in the Manage tab, Julia can see all of the learning materials she's assigned to different teams and individuals, as well as their completion status. The Learning app in Teams makes it easy to find and access micro-learning content, helping employees complete tasks efficiently. Richard is a first-line worker who has a question while working in a remote cell tower. He taps on a group chat in the Teams app and posts his question. His colleague Olivia sees his question and remembers watching a relevant training last week. She quickly searches for it in the Learning app, finds it, and sends it to Richard. Richard views the training and is able to complete it right from his phone. He receives credit for finishing the training and earns a certification card verifying his new skill, which he is easily able to add to his LinkedIn profile. At every level of your organization, the Learning app in Microsoft Teams with LinkedIn Learning and Microsoft Learn makes learning content more easily discoverable and facilitates social learning right within the flow of work.
Thanks to Charlotte, and thanks for that video. I think that gives you a good sense of what to expect in the months ahead. In so many ways, this is an important day and an important launch, but it's a whole lot more than that as well. It's a new beginning across Microsoft as we bring together the best of LinkedIn and GitHub and the other parts of the company. It's a new beginning as we focus on waves of technology innovation, the kind of innovation that will create what Satya described at the outset, a system of learning that will serve employees and individuals and employers as well. As we focus on the future, we know that we need to not only innovate in terms of new technology, but forge and strengthen new partnerships with nonprofits and governments around the world. We all have the opportunity to fill new jobs and create new chances for success for people everywhere. That's what we're determined to do. If we work together well, we can turn a year that had a bleak beginning into a decade that has a bright finish. We look forward to working with all of you. Thanks for tuning in.
There was a really important line in that presentation that went by. And it was this one. Let me explain a problem. There is an explosion going on in the technology space, and it's even more so because of COVID. The world is being forced onto the internet. So guess what we need more of? The internet is a technology and a high science infrastructure. Therefore, we need more highly trained infrastructure scientists, engineers, service technicians, and we don't have time to wait for them to go graduate from a 4-year university. Over the last decade, American businesses have been falling farther and farther and farther behind because we haven't had the talent to bring to the table to do the jobs we've got. We are backlisted with a whole bunch of positions and recs open we can't fill because we can't find the talent. Now, the universities are doing what they can, but they are based on a traditional model that was never intended to fill the manpower requirements that we're seeing in the technological explosion. Why? Because technology is growing quadratically. Knowledge begets knowledge, and it is literally exponential. The number of new high-tech jobs, the number of AI jobs that are coming on the market right now, huge potential. So, industry's choking, and we're hiring not just US-based, but it's well known that technology companies around the world are hiring around the world. And now something just happened. And what happened in 1 year's time. What we learned was you do not have to be working in the same city in order to be a completely viable employee in my company. That just changed. If I need 10 people and 3 of them are living in Australia, oh well. Whoopee. I hired an engineer that I needed for some security compliance work 2 weeks ago. Oh, by the way, he lives in Los Angeles, and he has no plans of moving. And I have no plans of moving him. I don't need to. He can do everything he needs to do from right where he's sitting. What that means is the jobs that are going to be in the future and the whole job market is in a radical state of change. Industry is not going to wait any longer for colleges to ramp up and crank out using the colloquial model of a campus, a 4-year degree, and all of that overhead, which saddles the students with a $100,000 debt, and creates a delay in the pipeline that frankly is technologically dated by the time they get out of school, depending on the textbooks they're using. The solution was build an organization that could identify individuals by skill and promote those individuals in a skills-based taxonomy and profile to industry. That organization is LinkedIn. And if you don't understand the importance of LinkedIn quickly, you're going to fall behind. So we have a new taxonomy, and it's not about a degree that you've got. It's not about what you majored in. It's about what you know how to do. And it's not made up of 3, 5, 6 things that you know how to do. It's made up of 30, 50, 60 things you know how to do. It's explicit. It drills down to a very, very fine granular level so that employers can hunt for specific job placement based on whether or not the applications or the particular mathematical skills or accounting skills or bookkeeping skills are present in an individual, particular engineering skills, particular software background. Now granted, in an ordinary interview, you bring that in on your resume, and I, the employer, don't get to see that resume until you walk in my office. Or you mail it in, and I have to sort through dozens and dozens and dozens of resumes in a great big stack on my desk, looking for something. No more. Now I apply a search engine. Wham! I got 117 candidates. I establish profiles around those candidates, and I can very quickly screen at a very, very close range specifics that I'm looking for in an individual. Now, if I hire somebody who's got the 22 skills that I need, but he doesn't have a college degree, guess what? I don't have to pay him as much. Do you think that impacts me as a businessman? Sorry, it does. And if I have a choice between a college grad who wants to start at 60K and the skill-based person who wants to start at 40K, guess what I'm going to do? Hello? Are you getting this? This is your future I'm talking to. Things are about to get a whole lot more competitive because a whole lot of people don't have to go to a 4-year university to compete with you for the same job. I have a solution. We're going to talk about it. Skills-based certifications. So LinkedIn will certify and provide training for and miniature certificates of completion for various trainings. Oh yeah, 16,000 classes? What university offers that? And it's growing. And if you think for a second that by this time next year, you aren't going to be able to go out on LinkedIn and sign up from a class, sign up for a course from Northwest Nuclear, you're sadly mistaken. We will be part of the offering of the curriculums out there. And in certain nuclear work, especially around fusion, we're offering some skills that frankly I don't think you can get anywhere else. Oh yeah, they're free. Think about what that means to the third world. Think about what that means to countries in Africa. Think about what it means to the Chinese population. Think about the fact that now, for the first time, through what Microsoft is doing and the LinkedIn program is doing, we're offering education globally, instantaneously, in volume, to all kinds of people who couldn't travel, get visas, come into the country, attend American universities at enormous cost. All that is gone almost overnight. Not only that, LinkedIn documents your network and any recommendations that people give you. And there's a whole system for promoting and recommending people around certain skills and certain background that they have. That number's wrong. It says 25,000 skills-based hires. It was 250,000. That's how many people are going to get hired just on the basis of the skills they have this year alone. No college degree required. Well, by now, I should be raising a whole host of questions. This is the industry's workaround to the shortage of talent. That's what this phenomenon is. This is something that is sponsored by the industry because, frankly, nobody else was solving the problem. The government wasn't solving the problem. The schools weren't solving the problem. No one was solving the problem. So industry got up and solved the problem. Okay, now let's talk about some answers. What if I'm already going to college? But I'm accepted at a good college? What's 2 times 2? 4. I'm going through and I see, okay, here's an individual that has a bunch of skills. Here's an individual that has a bunch of skills and a degree. If I'm looking for talent, that's attractive. That's attractive. If I'm looking for getting something on the cheap, well, then the college person's probably going to lose out. That college person's got to pay back that school loan. That's just all there is to it. But if you add a college degree, and oh yeah, while you're going to college, you leverage the LinkedIn and do the skills too. You're not just sitting there with a piece of paper, the sheepskin from school, and a LinkedIn that says, I got a sheepskin from school. No, you've got 97 other skills that you acquired through LinkedIn and other organizations, and you've added them. Now you look like a Christmas tree. Well, which is more important? The LinkedIn thing or going to college? 2 times 2 is 4. Come on. The idea is get them both if you can. If economically you are limited to just doing skills, then hey, this is the greatest news you've ever heard. Because now you can get some really good education, pick up some really high-end skills, and leave Fred Meyer behind. Go to work for Hewlett Packard. But if you've got the option, go to college. If you've got the option, go to college. That person is still going to be a more viable candidate for executive level leadership in the company. So is college a waste? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That degree still counts for something. But it is not a standalone ticket to ride anymore. You have got to make a commitment to become a lifelong learner because everybody else did. They now have access to. They don't have any excuses. It's not a financial thing. It's not about money anymore. All that knowledge is out there. It's always been there in the internet. And those of us who knew where to look for it were already watching YouTube videos hand over fist, gobbling it down. Most of the skills that we offer here, I have not been formally trained in, but we sure know how to do them. How will this impact starting salaries? Well, this is an equation about the laws of supply and demand. And that's kind of a mixed bag. What's happening here is we've got job markets that are exploding, technology markets that are exploding. We need more and more workers. Now all of a sudden we have a flood of talent that can make it through the door. So there's a tremendous amount of the population out there that couldn't get an education before. Now they can. And they don't need much to do it. Quite honestly, somebody sitting in Uganda with a cell phone can now put together a pretty doggone looking portfolio on LinkedIn and get a pretty doggone good education right over that cell phone. If they've got a place to charge it and they've got time to run it, and if they believe in the process firmly enough to stay with it until they complete it, then they will succeed. My most highly rewarded engineer that has been working for me for the last 7 years, fabulous human being. His name Mulugeta Kambata. He's got a work ethic from Mars. It's just absolutely incredible what that man has cranked out. I have the deepest respect for him. And he gets just about anything he asks for. And why not? So the world is changing, and quickly. What is lifelong learning? Well, it's understanding that when you were a kid, your parents always told you you only had one thing to do in life: grow up. Remember them saying that? Grow up. Okay, well, they weren't meaning just physically. You know it and I know it. They wanted you to grow up in many ways. And one of the ways they wanted you to grow up was in maturity, intellectual understanding, communication skills, wisdom, knowledge about the workings of the sociological environment in which we are in and how to navigate that successfully without falling on your nose. Well, what about the colleges? What happens to them? What happened to the department stores? Hello? You saw it. The internet changed a bunch. How many different department stores fell to Amazon? Anyone want to go with me to Sears? Ain't gonna happen. How about Penny's? The universities are going to have to reinvent themselves. They are going to have to take a look at what's happening in the environment, and they are going to have to make changes about what they have to offer and how they offer it. I haven't figured that out. It's not my job. It's their job. But a great deal of the university and college infrastructure in this country is going to have to morph to survive. And if I was an educator right now, or especially if I was an administrator in an educational organization right now, I would be sweating bullets. I would be burning the midnight oil. I would be bringing the finest minds I could to the table quickly and starting to analyze what my options are. What happened to the newspaper companies? Anyone want a newspaper subscription? That's what technology does. And in a way, it's sad. I was an IT manager for a chain of newspapers. And while I was working in that environment, we all sat down at the table and we could see the storm coming. We knew the day was going to come when people did not go out on their front porch in the morning and pick up the newspaper. It just wasn't going to happen anymore. That day came. And the building I was working in is gone. Intellectual collateral, human talent. You have to be constantly growing. The whole technological reality is constantly getting more and more complex. That actually means more and more jobs. That's a good thing. But it also means that you have to have more and more knowledge to manage those jobs. And so that's the commitment I'm trying to sell you here tonight. It's not, hey, I'm going to go to school for 4 years, cram my brain full of facts, go out, get a good job, get a paycheck, settle down to a nice American life. Dream on. You're going to come out into a horse race, is what you're going to come out to. And you're going to be running intellectually for the rest of your life in that race. Just to stay up with the pack. And if you want to break out and move ahead, that comes at a cost. We're talking some crazy hours. We're talking some insane, absolutely. My wife over here is just laughing at me. She knows doggone good and well what I put into Microsoft in a week. By the way, thank you very much for being patient with me last week. I have a little poem about last week. I'll recite it to you. It goes like this. I burned my candle at both ends. It will not last the night, but all my foes and all my friends admire the pretty light. Yeah, burnout is real. Let me tell you. Well, what if I was going to be a teacher in one of these institutions? Excuse me, I didn't say teaching was going away. Teachers will still be highly valuable. They actually are going to wind up with more places to teach. It won't be necessarily just in colloquial brick and mortar schools. There'll be all kinds of online opportunities to teach and create course material. So if you want to invest your life in helping other people learn, that's not a bad shtick. In fact, I don't know anybody in the technological industry, certainly at Microsoft, who isn't a part-time teacher. I am constantly being asked to do brown bags. What that means is, on your lunch hour, you come on down to my end of the cafeteria. I probably roped off a table, got a bunch of Starbucks folks hanging out, and we're going through some new technology that we're going to be rolling out in our department. And a bunch of people have to learn it on the fly. So they're down there to get an earful. Yeah. Pretty much a daily occurrence. Where will the money be? There are certain industries that are always going to be favored. The medical industry, obviously now the electronics industry, IT industry. We see some newcomers, AI, artificial intelligence, social engineering. Yeah, there's some new technological faces on the block, but the mainstays are still going to be there too. The medical industry will probably transition slower than the IT industry because there aren't as many certifications and titles. It's a more fluid environment. I would say overall that engineering and technology are probably best bet situations because I don't see any of that going away anytime soon. Okay. I encourage you all to go to college and do the LinkedIn thing. Add it to the portfolio. Don't just do the college thing. build yourself a network, build yourself a whole list of skills and certifications. Get to work on your LinkedIn identity. Start now. Build yourself connections into companies. Those search engines will pick up those threads and they'll be all over you by the time you graduate. It'll do a lot of the door banging that you would have had to do automatically. And by the time you get out, you'll probably already have a fistful of offers in hand. Okay, any questions?
I agree with everything you said, but I just wanted to point out there are some exceptions. Like you mentioned medical industry. If you're a physician, if you're going to be a lawyer or veterinarian, you have got to have the college degree to back it up.
Yep.
But the largest employer in the state of Washington is the public school system. And in order to be a teacher, you have got to have the college degree.
Yep.
There are no exceptions.
Yep. Yep. However, there may be exceptions in the near future as this begins to unfold. One of the things that the schools are going to have to do is open the door to new opportunities to recruit teaching talent from industry, because the industrial talent in a teaching capacity can many times be more relevant because they are face down making real products in real markets on a daily basis. So they're far more in touch with what that curriculum is going to inevitably do. Any other questions? Got it all figured out? Okay. Alrighty. Okay, I'm going to switch a camera and then I'll be back up here with you in just a minute. Okay. Roll call here. Ankit, are you awake?
Yep.
Christina, are you awake?
Yes.
Evan, are you awake?
Yes.
Caitlin, are you awake?
Yeah.
Okay. Are the four of you out there awake? I want to hear four voices.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Got a little bit farther to go tonight. Time for the toys. Woohoo! Anyone know what this is? Nobody?
It's a telescope.
Ooh, thank you very much. It is, and yes, indeedy. This particular one is an 8-inch Mead. It's a computerized telescope, and we're going to be talking about it a little bit tonight because it hit 72 degrees. Now, I know astronomers are supposed to be generally cold-blooded and go out in the absolutely freezing clear skies of December. And I get that, but as you get older, that becomes a little harsher, and so I like to go out in the summertime when it's a decent temperature, and that way I not only get to see the stars, I get to bat at the mosquitoes. You know, you take your pick. Anyway, astronomy can be a whole lot of fun, but it has changed. We're going to look at what a modern telescope has to offer today, and we're going to try to familiarize ourselves with it a little bit so that we've kind of got an expectation of how this thing operates, so that when we actually go outside, we've got a fair understanding of how to make it work. Some of you will actually become so enthralled with this thing that you'll eventually go buy one yourself. It's one of the more fun things to own in life. This particular telescope is actually one of several different styles. I'm not going to go into the different types of telescopes, but this particular telescope has the essential ingredients you need to do what's called tracking the star. Now, why do we need to track a star? Well, they move. Well, actually, they don't move, we move. And the reason we move is because the planet's rotating. So the stars are coming over us in a very specific arc. And that arc is something that actually, when you're using a significant magnification, causes an object that you're focused on to move out of your range of vision in a matter of just a few seconds. So you can get maybe 20, 30 seconds of looking at something and they just wandered right out of the viewfinder and you're no longer looking at it. So there are some ways in which we can prevent that from happening. And in the old days, we would have a horizontal axis and a vertical axis. And so this is a gimbal with a telescope mounted in it, and it's a very balanced thing. And over here on this side of it, there's a thing called a GPS. That's an addition. Old telescopes didn't have a GPS. This one has a GPS. Now the reason it has a GPS is because the telescope needs to know where you are on planet Earth. Because the telescope now has an intelligence in it in the form of a computer. And the computer is connected up to the motors that drive it. So I'm going to take this telescope, I'm going to turn it on, and I have a hand controller. And this hand controller gives me some options. Now, this particular one is asking me what date it is. So I'm going to accept the date and the time, and whether it's daylight savings time or not. And I'm going to align the telescope. And it says, okay, set the telescope in an alignment to true north. How do I do that? Well, I'll tell you how we do that. This is my telephone. And the telephones of today, oh dear, now I have a finger. Telephones of today have a GPS and a compass and a whole lot of other things called apps. So I can look in here. I got an app called Skyview. I'm going to show you my Skyview app. So you can see this here. And as you can see, as I move the phone, things appear and move around on the screen. And I can see any star, and I can see any object that's currently orbiting the Earth, old rocket boosters, satellites, all kinds of junk up there. I can see it all on this screen. Right now I'm looking at Neptune. It's right down there, right to the floor. Oh, yeah, on the other side of the Earth and out into space, but that's where it is right now. And I can look up there and I see, oh, there's the sun, and we've got Mars, and we've got Venus, and we've got Mercury, and yeah, a few other wonderful things. See what else we got hanging out. Trying to figure out where the Skylab is. And by just taking this simple device and looking around, I can find just about anything I want. Now, it has another feature. This is being the app that it is. And that is, it allows me to look for things. So I'm going to go in the stars, and I'm going to look up a star by the name of Polaris. Can anyone tell me what that star is?
Is that the North Star?
Correct. My phone has got me confused here for a moment. Have to find it. Oh dear. Now, you can hear, maybe, right there I am locked on to Polaris. That means that my phone is now pointing perpendicular to the North Star. My telescope wants to know where north is. So this is very complicated. I have added a telephone clamp to my telescope. And so now I can take my telescope, which is beeping again, unlock it, is it actually? Okay, we've got a problem here. For some reason, it shifted to a different star. That means I touched the screen at some point. Okay, we'll try this again. Now why, just in that amount of time, okay. My phone has ceased to beep because it is now locked onto Polaris. Okay, so now I have true north set into this thing. I can press enter, and all of a sudden the telescope takes off on its own. And it says it's going to go find Cirrus. Isn't that cool? I mean, come on. Okay, so it is now slewing to keep up with the sky. And I'm looking down here, and sure enough, there is Cirrus on my cell telephone. So I'll press enter again. And now it's going to go after Capella. Okay? I can't look at my cell phone in that particular position, so that's not going to do me any good. So what I'm going to do is press enter, and it says aligning successful. Now it opens up the menu, and I am able to go ahead and look at anything I want. So I'll press mode, go for an object, go for the solar system, and we'll look at Mercury. Well, it was supposed to. Let me back up. Well, guess where the moon is? Okay. So the moon is pretty much right overhead. I don't know how dark it is out there, but it might be a real good night to roll the telescope out as it heads that direction and take a look.
It's dark.
Okay, well, we won't go out there tonight. We've still got some things to go look at. Let's give Saturn a shot. No, it says rises at some other time, so it's not going to change. It's not going to go look at a place that's down there.
Can you put Skylab in? Things like that.
Okay, right now it's looking for Mars. Yes, it can find Skylab, and it even has the software to track Skylab differently from the other stars. Now this is the tracking function of the telescope. Well, you're going, well, that's cool. I mean, you know. Now what I'm going to do, so I'm going to unlock this. As you can see, we have a way, using our telephone and our GPS, to orient the telescope so that the software inside can track objects across the sky. Okay, so the moon travels in a little different orbit, but basically along the same parameter, but satellites don't. So you have to kind of know what you're looking at, but the software, if you've got the right object keyed in, will actually move the telescope with that object so that the object remains in the field of view. Now, this is the eyepiece, and this is, we're going to talk about some of the pieces. This part where you make a 90-degree turn is called a diagonal. Yeah. Come over here. Okay, so this is the diagonal, and this is the lens. Okay, pretty cool. And you can get different lenses at different levels of magnification and put them, this is a 1.25 inch lens system. And the way it works is This is an 18 millimeter lens. And I also have over here a 13 millimeter lens. And I also have a 9 millimeter lens. And I have a 6 millimeter lens. And the smaller the aperture, the greater the magnification. Then I'm going to introduce you to another piece. So these are the various lenses. This is called the diagonal. Then we have an interesting animal. This thing is called a Barlow. And the Barlow sits in the diagonal and you put the lens in the Barlow, and now you look and it'll tell you whether it's a 2x or a 4x, and it multiplies the whole combination to a higher power. So now when I connect it, lock it on, I'm looking at a much more powerful view of the same image. Okay? Now we're going to get silly. Around here, we don't do anything halfway. So I'm going to pass this around, let everybody kind of take a look. You don't want to know how much that costs. Those are optical instruments. And we're going to put a different connector on the telescope. This is a bigger connector. This is a 2-inch. Now we're going to get sillier. This is my diagonal. And we're going to put that on there. And oh yeah, I need a Barlow. So there's my 2x Barlow on there. And oh yeah, I need a lens. This is my lens. It contains a small plate glass window in the front of it. So I'm going to spin this around so you can all see what this thing looks like.
Is that increasing field of view or magnification?
It increases the field of view significantly. So much so that when I'm looking into the lens at an angle, it appears to me that I am looking through a window and I can see everything like a spread like that. It's crazy. This is an amazing instrument. We were looking at a about a 150-foot tree down at the end of our block from my driveway. And I went up to the very, very top most branch, about 150 feet up, and zoomed in on the topmost sprig, and I could count the pine needles. If there had been an ant on that branch, I could have seen it. It was absolutely amazing. There's a problem. This thing is tremendously one-sided now, and you have to be very careful because you're talking a lot of money in optics here. And so there's a danger that all this can fall over really easy, because this is really quite heavy. Okay. I'm going to pass this lens around so you can all kind of take a look at it. And see how big the eyepiece in there is.
The telescope that I have isn't as powerful as that one, and it's not computerized. But when the police were raiding a meth house a mile away from my house, I could read the license plates on the cars. But when we looked at the moon, very quickly it moved out of the field of view.
Yeah. Someone got the other lens?
Over here.
Okay. So, as you can plainly see, you can get crazy with astronomy. You can do some really amazing things. I took this new lens assembly and went out looking at the moon. And I honestly felt that I had the same view as Neil Armstrong, who was orbiting the moon before they put the lunar lander down. I was that close. I could look down. I could see the craters. I could see the craters within the craters within the craters. You could see the terrain very clearly. This is a fabulous size telescope to examine the moon with. Probably not real good for looking at things like Andromeda or certain nebula or whatever. You need, you need the Hubble Space Telescope for that. But as far as looking at the moon or looking at Saturn or Jupiter and seeing the other moons orbiting around, you betcha, this is a real special little telescope.
What about the sun?
With filters, this will look at the sun at very close range, and you can see some incredible patterns of the magnetic storms and, of course, sunspots and other kinds of disturbances. You bet.
You have those filters?
I do not have those filters, and until I do, I wouldn't dare point this thing at at the sun, it'd probably incinerate the optics really quick. Um, there are some things you have to learn. Okay, so the way in which we sight an object in the night sky. So we have our old telephone. Our telephone is locked in, and we key in the object we want to look at, and we can steer to it and then clamp it down. And as long as we've done the orientation you saw me do where the computer aligns itself, the moment I go ahead and clamp down, the motors in the telescope will take over and start tracking with that object. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this spotter scope, because the chances are that my telephone was accurate enough to put the object directly in the field of view of my telescope. Probably not going to happen. But it will be in the field of view of my spotter scope. Now this particular spotter scope has a battery-powered illuminated reticle. So there's a little dial here, and this thing is really cool because it allows you to create a crosshairs that you can see on a dark night that will just be bright enough to cover a star or an object that you're looking for, a planet. And you can see exactly when you've got the telescope aligned on it. Now, instead of moving the telescope at that point, you use these buttons. Okay, I have to find one that's rising. Hang on. Now this is kind of important when you're working freehand and you have some very high-end optics on this thing. I don't know if you can see it, but right now this scope is moving. I have a control panel, and I can move the scope up and down for my electronic controls. And what that enables me to do is to actually look through the scope and move the telescope without touching it. It's a much more accurate process of aligning to a particular object. In other words, when I'm looking into my spotter scope, then I would use my buttons to center up on the particular object I'm looking for. And when it's really close, then I'd look at my eyepiece and see if it's in my field of view. And if it's not, then I'd scoot around a little bit using these buttons until it was. And then there's finally a focus control, only one of them, right back here. And you can take that and tune the optic until the blur is gone and you have a nice sharp pinpoint prick of light if you're looking for a star. So these are the fundamental operating procedures of running a telescope. I will also say that for those of you who want to go into astronomy for any length of time in order for it to be a fun experience, I do suggest you remove the lens cap before you go looking. Because if you don't, you're not going to see much. Okay. Any questions? Anybody awake? Okay.
How heavy is that if you had to move the thing?
We're having an elevator put in. I kid you not. As a matter of fact, hang on just a second here, I'll show it to you. If you'll watch for a moment. Okay, what you're looking at right there, folks, is the elevator cage, and there is a 15-foot column on the floor waiting to be installed that this cage will go up and down on. And so it's a motorized transport, and we can roll the telescope right into it, and it'll ride up to the observation deck, and we can roll it out here on the edge of our balcony and see the night sky and look over the top of the house, everything. So that's one of the things that we're going to be using it for. It's also making our split level house handicap accessible. Yeah, as a matter of fact, one of the other interesting thing that's happening simultaneously, if you believe in coincidences, is the two great big Douglas fir that take up more than 40% of the night sky to the north are coming down right now. They'll both be gone by Monday. Out of here. So that's going to open up another great big swath of sky for us to look at. Part
Did
of it
you
is
arrange that just so you'd be able to see more of the sky? Because this, so I want to know how to do it, because I miss the fireworks every year, even though I'm right beside them, but there's just one tree that blocks the whole view.
Yeah. Well, we were just standing in the right time in the right place. I'll put it that way. But we are definitely planning this summer and doing some sky watching. If you're interested, I would love to share the experience with you. Just reach out to me and let me know, and I will put you on the list on call to be called when we decide to go on out there and take a look. We're going to watch the weather, and we're going to watch for suitable objects which have to be in the field of view. Obviously, I can't look through the center of the earth. So those things taken into consideration, we're going to have a few star parties this year. We didn't get to last year. There was just too much going on with COVID. It's really hard to look through an eyepiece with one of these on. But I think by this time, well, let's see, probably another couple of months, a few more immunizations, and yeah, you guys will be able to come out here. Probably still need face masks, but come out here and look in the scope and see some of the wonder.